G'day everybody, it's Sunday and yes, I'm at work, so it was easier to work here, a long story, but anyway, I'm at work working on the notice of race for 2027. I've got stuff everywhere, I've got to cross-reference everything. We're changing the style of it to a different format, but anyway, I hope you're having a good Sunday, a good weekend, yeah, we're not a lot of tweets to talk about. Except for Explorer. Apparently they've cracked or broken their furling gear extrusion, which is unbelievable. I'm not sure what happened. But anyway, they said they've got to leave a slight wrap now in the with the sail. They can't go full out on the Genoa, which is not good because even though there's foam on the luff, you still turn into a bag of wheat sort of thing once you start furling a little bit, and it's a lot of windward work coming up. So it's not exactly conducive to high speeds, but nonetheless, I'm not sure what happened. We'll see. We'll find out about that later on. Maiden actually caught some more water, filled up their tanks again, so they've got a couple of weeks guaranteed water, which is good for them. And everyone's hot and sweaty. And the first couple of boats are across the equator, so they're on the other side now, which is kind of cool. And we'll go straight there and have a look at what's happening. I've got Windy there as well. This looked like the tracker, so hopefully you've got it there, and hopefully Jane's not here, but hopefully she's watching, and that'll tell us. I'll come back and check in a minute just to make sure it's up and running. So here we go. Oh, I haven't got the grids on this, so there we go. This is 0 degrees. This is the equator here. Yep, there's the equator. So Penduic and L'Esprit de Keep went across last night, and they're still moving, which is kind of pretty interesting, making pretty reasonable progress through. And there's this sort of it's not really a high pressure system, but there is an overall a very weak high right over the top of the doldrums, and there's a bit of a bomb happening here, not big winds, but you can see it's extending out in all directions from this center core here. So it's a local anomaly sort of thing. It's not really a high pressure or anything like that, but it's producing wind, and they're all still moving, so that's very encouraging. Anyway, coming down here, we can mention Explorer now because they're sailing, and the wind is actually doing some pretty interesting things for them. I thought they were going to be a bit cooked here, but if you look at this, you can see you've got the southeasterly trade winds coming here, and it's actually even hooking up even a little bit more, helping Explorer head along the coast without having to tack, which is good. But shortly you'll see they've got to get offshore a bit because there's going to be no wind along the coast here, but wind everywhere else. So Explorer is doing 6.5. They've slowed down a little bit. They were doing 7.1 in the previous 4 hours, and they didn't do 385 nautical miles in the last 24 hours, so don't stress over that. I'm not sure what they did, but it wasn't that kind of speed. Anyway, Sterner is doing 7.4, and they've probably done about 185 miles, 184 miles, and they've got 4,092 to go. I got a couple of things wrong with that in yesterday's tracker. So Explorer have got 4,265, so they're about 160 miles, 170 miles behind Sterner, not 300 miles. There was some juggling numbers going on there. Anyway, White Shadow still doing 6.9, did 178 nautical mile day, so still sailing up to the edge of the doldrums. And Triana slowed down a bit, 6.6, 171 mile day. Still pretty close, but you can see there's obviously a variation in the wind. It's all getting a little bit localized because you've got this system creating some sort of confusion there. So there'll be winners and losers, which is what we've always said. Evrika have obviously crossed the line. They're only doing 0.7 of a knot, but they've managed 107 miles in the last 24 hours. So they've well and truly bumped into the doldrums, and we'll just have to see. It's hard to predict anything. Galeana's still sailing, and they may well sail off the back of this system here. If they keep going in that direction, what we were talking about yesterday, they might hold and sail up in this breeze, which is bordering on that bridge that we spoke about before. So it's all over the place, really. So there's no trend, but local weather is assisting some and not others. Translated 9 still doing 6.5 knots and managed 92-mile day. They may do all right with that as well. But Neptune, yeah, they're moving again. They hadn't been looking so good. But they're still doing 5.2, so they'll be happy with that. 106-mile day. And that's pretty cool. And then over the other side, Spirit of Helsinki struggling. They're right in the middle of whatever that thing is called. That system there, doing nothing. And alongside them is Maiden, pretty much matching their pace. They've certainly caught up as we expected them to do in terms of compressing against the leaders. They're only 60 miles behind. I'll build that up so you can see it a bit better. Helsinki, bow to bow, is about 80 miles behind the L'Esprit de Keep and only 113 miles from Penjuik. Now, that doesn't sound very far, but you've got to remember speed and distance here is exaggerated because they're very fluky, light winds and this, that, and the other. So that gap there did compress because Penjuik and the L'Esprit de Keep stopped their boat speed before Helsinki did. Now, the opposite can happen when they get to the other side here. The first boats into these trades that start rolling, that 100 miles can very quickly stretch out to 250 miles because they'll get a break first and take off again. So it's a little bit distorted, but nonetheless, they're in touch and you don't know what's going to happen by the time they get across to the other side of the doldrums. You just don't know this, because this edge here, if we call that a hard edge of the northeasterly trades coming down, yesterday it was down nearly to the equator, but it's now moved back. So Penjuik's sort of chasing it, and that makes it very hard to predict. But at the moment, they're in a pretty good position to stay in touch. Same with Translated. We can pretty much say the same thing for Translated. They're probably on the course. If you measure them off the run line, that's probably about right there. So Translated is only 126 miles behind Penjuik as well, which means their IRC rating will be very competitive against Penjuik. They'll be a day or so up on that. So some interesting stuff going on. Anyway, L'Esprit de Keep 4.6, I think I mentioned that. So it's still very much a boat race, and they're sort of all in touch, which is very good. So very good for us watching the race anyway, not good for those on the water. So let's have a look at the big picture for the weather, and then we'll move the weather forward a couple of days. You can see it's average doldrums, not really dramatic, but not. There is something there that's playing around with the fleet. So nothing's changed up here really. There is the remnants of a. We're slowed up on the internet here. That's a high pressure system up there. So that's driving the. Here we go. There it is there. You can see that rotation there, and that's driving the northeasterly trade. So it's pretty solid once they get into it. It's not extreme, actually. It's quite light. So this can really blow down here. These trades can be very strong. But at the moment, it's quite mild for these trades. So, and in fact, there's a few big holes there. If we look at that, when I say holes, it's light weather. So it's not powerful at all. Now, that may be good and bad. It's good because when there's light headwinds, you can actually hold up higher and tack 90 degrees or something. But they're going to be on starboard tack, so they'll hold 45 degrees to the wind direction or better, which could be quite good. And it's easier to do that when there is light headwinds rather than sort of, if you've got 15 to 20, it's dramatically easier compared to 25 to 30, and the sea state's different and so on. Current-wise, because the current should all be in the trades there going with them. Well, there's a little bit going up the other way, because when you get wind against tide, or when you get the current against the wind, they get really messy. So anyway, enough of that. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. We'll build this up a little bit so we can see what the local weather's going to do. I'm not so worried about Sterner and Explorer because they're in the trades. We just want to see what the suggestion is here. That gives us a better look on that. So now I will start building this through. Here we go. It's moving around, opening up. It's just fluctuating. Need to come back one more on that. It's just fluctuating, so it's not. Yep. It's very slow. It's not catching up. Yeah. Why is it doing that? Okay, here we come. So there's about 12 hours from now, and there's not a lot to talk about. It's pretty much stationary, but there's possibly a little bit more breeze out to the west here. The breeze is coming down there. That may favour Neptune and translated, and L'Esprit de Keep and L'Esprit de Keep and Penduic are getting very close to the northeast trades. So that's encouraging, but there's plenty of delays for the rest of the fleet holding off behind. Okay, now pushing through to... okay, that's 24 hours from now. That's looking very good for Penduic and L'Esprit de Keep. 24 hours from now, they'll be... two things will happen. They'll be further ahead, plus this is coming down to meet them. So they'll be off and running. So they'll be out. They'll be on their way sometime early hours of tomorrow morning, and you'll see them settle into a particular course and track. This is pretty consistent northeasterly, and I would think they'll be going just off north. They'll be somewhere to the northwest, northwest or something like that, down here. So Penduic will be underway, and then it's how quickly Maiden and the rest can get up there. I think Neptune's going to be moving quite well, but you can see what happens is they're down to leeward, which means at some point, well, they'll keep going on that all the way up, and then hope these northeasterly trades turn into an easterly or something, and they'll hook around later on. So they shouldn't be doing any tacks. They'll just head out into the middle of the North Atlantic and then wait for the wind direction to change, and they should move around in 4 or 5 days or something like that. So you'll see them stretched out across it there. And there seems to be, this is 1 day out, there seems to be just a constant flow. You don't get those distinct, complete calms. So the rest of the fleet might be doing okay. So that's day one. Then coming into day two, there's more and more wind building over the whole area of the doldrums. There's no distinct calms. So that's worked through to day two. Well, it's starting to get light again. Yeah, it's getting light. So there's 48 hours out. It's come back, but I think that's going to be enough to keep them all moving. So 2 days out, they could all be getting very close to getting across. And then if we look at Sterner and Explorer, we'll come 4 days out, see what that looks like. Ooh, big challenges. Big holes. So, yeah, a big one. So they might slow down again. Who knows? A bit far out to talk about that. Okay. I'm going to tell you some funny stuff about watches in a minute when we get through all this, my weekend waffle. Let's have a look at because I nearly missed the startup. I was looking at my watch, and my watch was 5 minutes slow. I was, whoa, jeepers. Anyway, line on us. That's pretty obvious still. Hang on. I'll get down here. Penduic is leading the charge by about 12 hours or something from L'Esprit de Keep. They're going quite slow, so that's why they're so close together, but it's still 12 hours. Then the Spirit of Helsinki, Maiden, a translated 9, Outlaw, Neptune, Galliana with Secure, Evrika, Triana, White Shadow, Sterner, and Explorer following up the rear. Interesting numbers for distance sailed. Hang on a sec. Okay, distance sailed and distance to go. So they're just past the halfway mark now. It's taken forever. It's nearly 3 weeks, and they've only done 3,000 miles for Penduic, which is pretty average. So it's been challenging, and there's 3.5 to go. So that's going to be, there's 1 week to the end. March, 31 days in March. So they've got 7 days to go. So 1 more week. And then they've got another week and a half. So yeah, there's still going to be 10th, 11th, 12th, 10th, 11th, depending on what happened. But they're through the doldrums, so give it a week and we'll get better at it. But I think you'll see Penduic arriving, maybe 11 or 12, and at the opposite end of the scale, first week in May. Explorer's still got 4 weeks to go probably, so that'll be anything after the 25th. 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, we're going to be in cows for a while, I think. And Stern a little bit less than that, and so it goes. Okay, down to IRC or leg 4, and from the start, which is a pretty IRC from the start. So you got l'Esprit de Keep still holding first at 50 days. 20 hours later, you got Translated 9, and about behind that, another 13 hours, you've got Galliana with Secure. Then we've got Maiden, about another 8 hours behind that, and then Penduic, about another 5 hours behind that. So yeah, I think still we're talking about the top 4 here being all in the running for leg 4. Esprit de Keep, Translated, Galliana with Secure, and Maiden looking like IRC potentials to take out this leg. And if we come right down here to Triana, I think Triana's probably history for this leg, that's for sure, but it'll be a case of what's going to happen with the overall rankings. But they're going to be a couple of days behind. They've got many days up their sleeves, so it could still work. And I think we'll have another quick trip at this one. I don't want to do this every day because it's all a bit boring. Oh, before we go there, let's have a look at Windy to see what. I'll come back to real-time weather now. We'll get rid of the leaderboard for the minute, and we'll look at what the doldrums is looking like now. Remember this cell here that's exploding out from the center. I'm going to put Windy up now. That's Windy. Boom, boom. Okay, there's Windy. I get on here. So there's that cell here. And you can see these are the isobars for the pressure systems, and in the doldrums here, it's very weak. You've got massive distance between the doldrums, so not a lot of gradient there to generate wind, but there's something happening here in the center of this high. So looking very similar to what we've actually got on the system right now. There's 15 knots in that thing. And that's the GFS model, which we discussed yesterday. It seems to be a better representation of what's on Windy for the Yellowback tracker, and here's the ECMWF. It's a lot more bland, and the edge of the trade winds is a lot higher than it's suggesting on the other, not as hard. So it's a little bit fluffy there to try and work out what's going on. Always hard to predict this stuff, but generally it's okay. One thing I didn't show you, which I'll go back to the tracker. There's not a lot to show you on Windy. Daisy. Nope, that's the wrong one. So I'll get rid of that, put that one on. So we're back on the tracker now. So I'm back on the tracker. There's a distinct band of no wind coming up for Explorer. If we just go through there a day, you'll see this here. If they're going to go closer and closer to that, if they come in here and park, I will literally start losing more hair. So hopefully they just stay off. They're going to run up the edge of that, so they could be a long time yet. You can see they're heading for it now, and there's basically no wind in here. Now, whether they realise they should be offshore, and how can they get offshore? They can't really. They'll be sailing with this cracked foil and not able to hold as high as they could maybe. If it gets up to 25 knots, they can get rid of the Genoa and just go and stay sailing full main and mizzen, and they might be able to get out there. But you might see Explorer come up here and park with no wind virtually compared to over here. Anyway, enough of that. We're going to go to. I'm going to reboot this, and we will go to the combined IRC results just to see what it's saying. I think we did this yesterday as well. I think we did this yesterday, but anyway, so not much would have changed. IRC combined results from the start, legs 1, 2, and 3, and existing 1 for 4. So currently Triana is still holding first, and it's based on the current VMG of their boat, which has not been fast, so it could be considered to be realistic. They're on 182 days, 12 hours. Maiden is on 186, 3 hours. Now, would they be likely to take out 4 days? Not likely, in my opinion, but you never know. So Triana is still looking like favourites. And then Galliana and Maiden. Okay, Galliana is holding at least 6, 7, 8, 2 days and 2 days and 13 hours behind. Is Galliana likely to take out 2 days and 13 hours on Maiden? That's a tough call. It'd be very hard for them to do that. Not impossible, but hard for them. It's going to be a big slog to windward now. And even though Maiden is a downwind, line on its boat rather than a rating boat, that's the easiest way to explain it. They sail really well, and it's going to be just a blast to windward. And if they can stack their sails and bits and pieces, they do pretty well. So we'll have to wait and see. What's the chances of Spirit of Helsinki? Well, they're having a big tussle with Galliana with Secure, so they're exactly the same. There's nothing in it. There's only a few hours, 4 hours in it. And then we come back to Penjuic. No chance. 192 days, 10 days, they can't do that as overall. So they're not, Penjuic are not going to be IRC line on as overall. They could get close. It could be on the podium for IRC, but we only recognise the one winner of IRC. So that's enough of that, and people can bugger up. I'm going to tell you a funny little story in a minute about watches. Okay, so that's it there. To be talking about this red boat behind me as well. I just pulled this up to the top. It's a working. I forgot to check. That's good. Good everybody. Larry to Roger. All okay. Good morning, Judy, Christine. Hi, Christine. See you still having fun. Warren, morning. Could you review Windy while you're waiting for position changeover? Yeah, we just had a quick look at Windy. I hope that was enough. There's not a lot to talk about when it's trade winds on the top, trade winds on the bottom, and then the doldrums in the middle. But it's pretty straightforward. What we see is what we get at the moment. Hi Joe, g'day Mike. I hope everything's going well with your boat, and Martin and Paul. Okay, that's cool. All happening. Okay, so you can all bugger off now unless you want to hear my story. This is my my Ralphtech watch. It's a manual watch. It's a really nice watch. My favourite watch. Okay, I wear it all the time. They're super high quality, but it is a manual timepiece. It's not electronic. You've got a winder. It's got an automatic winder, but it's a typical mechanical watch. And this is what I call my big dick watch, because they say if you've got a big watch like that, you got a little, So I hardly ever wear it because it's really fantastic. It's waterproof to 500 meters, and it's a good dive watch. But I'm not diving at the moment and all that sort of stuff. But in the Golden Globe race, which is Joshua here, and over there, I've got, this is my favourite Sue Haley model, and it all started from Sue Haley. Doing the Golden Globe race, we only allow wind-up watches, and it was a real education for a lot of people, because you think, you got to buy a very expensive mechanical wind-up watch because we don't allow battery anything. There's no electronic watches or solar power watches or crystal, things that only lose like half a second every year or something like that. And so it was a shock to a lot of people to find that even when you spend like €3,000, because this one's, I forget what it is, it's pretty bloody expensive, that they don't keep perfect time. You still got to rate them. Some of these watches were losing like every day, 3 or 4 seconds, or even sometimes more. And so the key to that is to rate the watch and work out what the error is and come back to it and get your time signals and adjust it and things like that. But in the original Golden Globe race, Bernard Matessia, who sailed on Joshua, this boat here, he had a Rolex watch, and it was critical for them to have a good watch because they were using that watch for their celestial navigation, which is the same in the Golden Globe race. And Robert Knox Johnson on Sue Haley, even though he had virtually no money, he was doing pretty well. He owned Sue Haley, and it was, built in India and all that stuff. And he was a master mariner, on ships and stuff as well. He also had a Rolex watch. And the deal was you can't even take it off, like Matessia and Robin basically lived with that watch on their body for the whole 300 days or whatever it is, because it keeps the temperature constant, because the fluctuation in temperature changes the rate of the watch as well. So you had to leave it on, and Matessia did the same. And when Robin got back from his trip, Rolex knew about it, of course, and they offered to swap his Rolex, which they for a gold Rolex. And that original Rolex is still in the Rolex museum. Rolex have a museum of all famous timepieces, and Sir Robin's watch is there. And so it's interesting stuff. The reason I did it because I was wearing this watch, and it was like nearly 5 minutes slow because I hadn't adjusted it for a few weeks, and my life is not so critical that 5 minutes means anything, except for coming in. Oh shit! I had like 1 minute left of bloody but we got there anyway. And then I thought, another interesting thing. This thing here, see, that's the official gold coin for the last edition of the Gold Globe, which was the 22 edition, and this is actually a frame bolt from Suhaili. So Sir Robin gave us 50 of the frame bolts. They're like rivets, they're major rivets, that he removed in a big refit just prior to the 50th anniversary of the Golden Globe from Suhaili. So they took like 1,000 of them out, and he gave us 50. So each of the next 50 finishes from 2018 that finish, they get one of these, with the frame bolt. And the other interesting one, and then Joshua, which is another big name in the Golden Globe race, if you know the story. And remembering that the Golden Globe race preceded the Whitbread, it was directly because of the Golden Globe that the Whitbread race actually happened. So this is another one now. Joshua went through a midlife, or not a midlife, but it went through a major refit. And when Bernard Matessia lost Joshua up on the beach, and got washed up on the beach, and he walked away from it, he gave the boat to a guy. It put big dings in the hull, and those big dings in the hull have been there right up until last year, and they cut out a big section of plate. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing with the plate?" And so we've got another batch of these. There's 50 of these little pieces of Joshua's hull plate that go to the next 50 finishes from Joshua, which is pretty cool. And we've done another 100 of these, which we're giving to the museum that they can sell them off to try and make money to help with the refit and the running of Joshua. Anyway, a little side snippet, which was laughing because of my Ralph Tech watch was losing time. And beautiful watches, super high quality. It's not a problem with the watch. It's just that some people forget that when you've got purely mechanical watches, they need to be rated, and you need to keep updating them. Anyway, that was a Sunday yarn. So that's it. We'll see you tomorrow, and hopefully I'll get this notice of race finished to release the news this week on the new rules and regulations, and some new boats that will qualify for the 27 edition, even if they haven't done the Whitbread, and they'll be in flyer class. So stay tuned for that.